In this video, I'm going to be doing my list of the top 15 best rock and metal albums of 2023 so far. A lot of other channels have done theirs already, so here's mine. Mixing genres, it's going to be both rock and metal. It was kind of hard to whittle this down to 15, but these were the best ones and the ones I have been listening to most in the past 6 months. So with that being said, let's get right into it. At number 15 is Hellripper, Warlocks, Grim, and Withered Hags. This is the third album by the band Hellripper. It's a one-man band. He does all the writing. He plays all the instruments. It was an album I didn't expect to like at first. I'm not really into like black metal, but I like black metal if it's like mixed with like different genres. For example, this is mixed with classic speed metal and thrash. I heard some influence from early Metallica and early Motorhead, and for that reason, I like this album a lot. It's a solid album, start to finish. Doesn't really take any breaks. It's just a really heavy album, lots of heavy guitar riffs. So this album is 43 minutes long. It's 8 songs. Some of the songs are a little longer than others, but it's a very like intelligent album. The lyrics are very well written. They talk about different like legends from Scotland. Type of album where you can kind of read the lyrics and listen along, and all the songs are very good. So my favorite songs are The Curse Carrying Crown, Poison Womb, The Curse of the Witch, and pretty much everything else. So all the songs on this album are solid. At number 14, I have Obituary with Dying of Everything. So this is their 11th album. Probably one of the best albums they've released in a long time. It's old school death metal. They released it very early in the year. I think it was one of my first album reviews, and they really captured the magic of what they were known for back in when they started, like late 80s, early 90s. I like a lot of the songs. For example, The Wrong Time, that was one of the singles. It's very catchy. Then there's some really good deep cuts. For example, the song War, that one has some really great vocals, really aggressive, and they capture like the essence of that song, just like everything about it. So overall, it's a solid album. John Tardy's vocals are just as good as they've always been. This band has a distinct guitar sound. This is the type of band, when you hear the first couple notes, you know it's Obituary. So for that reason, I have it on. At number 13 is In Flames with Foregone. This is their 14th studio album, released on February 10th, 2023. This was very anticipated because this is a band that they are one of the pioneers of like melodic death metal, but it's also a band that where over the years they started changing their sound, and I think they started going downhill like in the 2010s where they released like some of their worst albums, such as like Battles, and then they released I the Mask, which was okay. I know a lot of fans didn't like that, but some liked it. I thought it was like a little better. But a lot of fans were worried about this album, and then they released the first single called State of Slow Decay. Then fans kind of relaxed a little. They knew it was going to be a pretty good comeback album. Then they released a second single called The Great Deceiver, and that one kind of like solidified the fact that it's going to be like one of their best albums in a long time. So I heard mixed reviews for this one. Some people think it's a continuation of I the Mask. Others think it's more of a return to sound of like that old school like Jester Race Colony sound. I thought it's kind of like a mixture of both of their modern sound and their old school sound, but it's an album I've gone back to a lot, so for that reason I have it ranked right here at number 13. At number 12, I have Enslaved with Heimdal. This is their 16th album. This is another one I didn't expect to like as much because, like I said before, I'm not a big black metal fan, but this is more like black metal but with progressive rock. So it's black metal and it also talks about like Norse mythology. And there's different songs. This album is specifically about Heimdal. He was someone from Norse mythology. So I listened to it a lot. I think the one song I liked the most was Congelia. That was one of the songs that was like closest to like old school black metal. But then there were other good songs like Forest Dweller and The Eternal Sea. For example, the song Forest Dweller, I like that. It reminded me a lot of like Opeth with those complex metal guitar riffs and the sound, and also the fact that like the vocals reminded me of like Jim Morrison. And if you didn't know, like The Doors is one of my favorite bands of all time. And I also like the final track called Heimdal because it sounds like an intro to an 80s horror movie with a creepy synth, and just gets very heavy with harsh black metal vocals. One of those albums you can just get lost in and enjoy all the details that have been put into it. I can compare this band to a band like Opeth with the song compositions that are very complex, and the type of album where there's just enough progressive rock to make it enjoyable, even if you're somebody who's not like a big black metal fan. That's why I have it on my list at number 12. At number 11 is Last in Line with Jericho. So this is the band featuring ex-members of the Dio band, the current lineup: Vivian Campbell, Vinny Appice, Phil Sousen, and Andrew Freeman. So the album was influenced by the Bible story of Jericho. It's an album I love. It's like as soon as I listen to it, I think they're able to write just very like catchy songs, and they capture the magic of 80s heavy metal. So lots of great songs here. So for example, the opening track, Not Today Satan, has really great drumming. Ghost Town has like this thundering bass guitar sound, and kind of reminded me a little bit of like Led Zeppelin's Black Dog, the way they kind of alternate with the guitar and the vocals. Bastard Son had a cool like Alice in Chains vibe, and it was more on the sludgy side. Dark Days was one of those memorable songs that had the guitar riffs that really stood out. And then the song Walls of Jericho captured like that traditional heavy metal sound. So this band only has 3 albums, and I think this is actually their best album. It's a great traditional heavy metal album with hints of classic Dio and 80s glam metal. Probably the heavier end of that subgenre, and just a great album at number 11. At number 10 is Queens of the Stone Age, In Times New Roman. So this band is back after 6 years. They released a very good album. It's the follow-up to Villains from 2017, which was a little disappointing. I thought it was an improvement. One of my favorites is Paper Machete, and that one has like an old school sound similar to albums like Songs from the Deaf. Negative Space has a very bouncy rhythm and a darker sound. I thought it was pretty cool, and I liked the drum beat in that song. Time and Place was cool. They had some very unique rhythms and time signatures with that song, and also had some strange and intriguing sounds in the mix. Made to Parade was a song that reminded me of the classic period as well. Carnavoyeur, one of the singles, had more of an atmospheric sound with some lower range vocals. And What Do People Say, it was very interesting because it was more of an upbeat song with some punk rock energy. So overall, very good album, and it just came out last month. So I have it at number 10. At number 9 is Depeche Mode with Memento Mori. So they released another album this year, and it was after the death of their longtime member, and it was a really good album. It dealt with the death of losing loved ones. I thought it was a very good album. The songs were able to capture some of the sounds that I had remembered from the 80s. So keep in mind, it's a band I haven't really followed since the early 90s, so it was a pleasant surprise listening to them again. So the opening track is called Cosmos is Mine. And it has that like one-of-a-kind like industrial like intro, and then that was a pretty cool song. But Ghosts Again was probably my favorite, and it's a catchy song, but a very like emotional like song as well, because the lyrics talk about like how like we're gonna become ghosts like one day again. The song talking about death. Also, my favorite, Stranger. That one has that like post-punk or goth sound from the 80s, and some dark sounds mixed with the electronics. Before We Drown, that's a good one with some classic electronic sounds mixed with a few modern touches. People Are Good, the kind of song that you listen to when you've had a bad day. You need to remind yourself that people are good. This one just has some awesome vocals and works well with the song. Really good album, and I have it at number 9. At number 8, I have Sleep Token with Take Me Back to Eden. This is what was kind of a surprise, because first time I listened to this band, I didn't really like them, or it was more like I didn't understand them. It sounded more like pop and R&B mixed with some like metalcore, but this album really grew on me. It's the first time I listened to the band, so for that reason, it was new to me, and the album was really good. I really liked the first half of the album, the singles, Chokehold, The Summoning, Granite, and then some of the songs in the middle to back are like very good, like Are You Really Okay? That one has some well-written lyrics about mental health, and the title track, Take Me Back to Eden, really good song there. So the album is different. Some people will love it, some people will hate it, but I really got into it, and for that reason I have it ranked right here at number 8. At number 7 is Burning Witches with The Dark Tower. This is an all-female band from Switzerland. They play classic heavy metal. This is the kind of heavy metal that was common in the early 80s with bands like Witchfinders General and Angel Witch, and like bigger bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. They write lyrics that are kind of like classic horror movies about different occult theme, like witches and those types of things. Some of my favorite songs are Unleash the Beast. That one has Courtney Cox of the Iron Maidens, and song is just a very fast-paced speed metal song with a catchy chorus. Renegade has some classic heavy metal guitar riffs and choking guitars. World on Fire has some of the best like guitar acrobatics on the album. Then it slowed down with Tomorrow, but my favorite song on the album is The Dark Tower. It just has the best guitar riffs and a very memorable chorus. And they do two covers, Shot in the Dark and I Want to Be Somebody by Ozzy Osbourne and Wasp, respectively. Overall, a good album, and I have it ranked at number 7. At number 6, I have Metallica with 72 Seasons. This one might seem like an obvious choice. You can see this one like right behind me here, so I don't really need to put a sticker up on this one. I really enjoy this album. It's just classic Metallica. They're not really going back to the thrash roots. They're not making Kill 'Em All 2 or Master of Puppets again. It's Metallica doing everything that they have done like over the past 40 years. So a lot of songs have grown on me a lot. So for example, the opening track, 72 Seasons, was one of the singles. I didn't like it at first, but it grew on me a lot. Especially the chorus, just very catchy song. And I know it's kind of like long for this type of song, you know, being that it's like a thrash song, but I still like it. And Shadows Follow, that's another one I've grown to love. And Darkness Had a Sun. That one I didn't like at first as a single, but now it's one of my favorites. Then there's Chasing Light. That one I think is like one of their best ones. It just has that crunchy guitar sound, the wah-wah sound of Kirk's guitar, and just everything you want. Too Far Gone, that's one of my favorite deep cuts. It's just a really great guitar riff and catchy chorus. And I still love the last song, Enamorada, even though it's kind of like a Load era song, and it's long, 11 minutes, but I think they really ended the album very well with this, because they use some like different types of guitar chords, and then there's like a Black Sabbath type of sound. So even though it's very long, I don't feel bored with it. So overall, it's an album I have been listening to very often, and that's why I have it here at number 6. And number 5 is Avenged Sevenfold with Life Is But a Dream. This is actually one of those rare instances where I would give an album a negative review, but I eventually changed my mind about it because for some reason, like I kept like getting drawn back to it. I kept like re-listening to the songs, and it really like grew on me. I think like the more you listen to it, the more you kind of understand it. I like the song Nobody. That was the first single. I didn't really like it that much at first. And then there's a single, We Love You. I still think it's pretty good. Probably my favorite is Cosmic. That's like just a really great song. And there's like this trilogy of songs, G, Ordinary, and Death, are really good, which all go through like these different types of sounds. Like everything from like this Daft Punk to like Frank Sinatra kind of sound. So that's just like really good. But I think the one song that brings down the album for me is the last one called Life Is But a Dream. It's just kind of like very simple, but I know some people just think it's necessary. But for me, it's a unique album. It's strange, but it just works. It's a good album. Just listen to it front to back and like look at the lyrics and just appreciate it for what it is. There's a lot going on, and it's just one of those strange cases where an album that I didn't like really grew on me. So rank that number 5. Well, number 4, I have Yes with Mirror to the Sky. You all know I'm a big fan of classic rock, so you're going to be seeing that in the next 2 entries. This one, it's an album that is a follow-up to The Quest from 2021, which was kind of disappointing, but this was a big improvement. It captures the sound of the early 70s. So we got the opening track, Cut from the Stars, a very spacey and melodic track, and it sounds like it could have been from like the Fragile album. All Connected, it's a mellow track, which is a good song to listen to if you want to relax. Luminosity has this grandiose sound with some epic melodies. Living Out Their Dream is a song that brings back some of the classic sound with a little bit of that modern edge. The title track is a longer song, but one you can listen to and just get lost in it with your thoughts. Circles of Time is more of a laid-back track with acoustic guitars. Then there's the song Unknown Place. It just has some interesting arrangements and percussion sounds. Overall, I thought it was a really good return to form for the band after a few disappointing albums. Like they've kind of lost their way over the years, and I know this is a band that it doesn't have a lot of the original members. I know they're kind of like a completely different band, and like It's kind of debatable on whether or not they should even be called Yes, but anyway, I have it at number 4. At number 3, I have Jethro Tull with Rokflote. Again, you know, I love classic rock, and this is just one of my favorite bands of all time. So last year they came back after this like long break with the Zillogene, and a lot of people didn't like that album. They thought it was an Ian Anderson solo album, and his vocals aren't the same as they were. I know he can't sing like he did when he was young, but you know, that's just how it is. But I liked the Zillogene a lot, and I had it ranked very high in my end of the year list. I think this one's actually a little better because they capture that early like 70s sound. So this one I can compare to albums like Songs from the Wood, Heavy Horses, and even like Thick as a Brick, sorry. But there are lots of good songs here. So we have Ginu Gagap. It's a throwback sound that takes you back to that late 60s with albums like Stand Up, and you got Ian Anderson's flute playing. The Feathered Consort that shows up their folk rock side and softer melodies and has a sound similar to maybe like the Zillogene. I think my favorite song is The Navigators. It's just a nice balance of those rock guitars and the folky and progressive sound the band has been known for. So overall, it's a great comeback. That was only released like a year after their last album, and I have it here at number 3. At number 2, I have the Foo Fighters, but here we are. So they released an album this year. It was after the passing of the drummer Taylor Hawkins, and an album that was meant to be a tribute to him, and the overall tone of the album was very emotional and sad, but they were able to channel all that emotion and make a really good album. So I think the Foo Fighters have only like 2 great albums from the modern days, and that would be like this one and Wasting Light, and I will be doing a ranking soon anyway. But anyway, I was surprised at how good this album was. A lot of songs capture the sound they had in the mid to late 90s. So, for example, the opening track, Rescued, is a really great alternative rock song. Some songs are more laid back and emotional. So, for example, the song Hearing Voices, it's a really good song with a very memorable and catchy sound. Then the song The Teacher. This is one's about Dave Grohl's mother, Virginia, who passed away in 2022. It's a 10-minute long song. Kind of very uncommon for the Foo Fighters to write a long song, but they made a really good song out of it, and it's just very emotional, one of my favorites on the album. And the final song, Rest, it's just this acoustic song with Dave singing. It's very sad, but it kind of gives you closure when you listen to it. So this is one of their best albums from the modern days. I have it here, ranked at number 2. At number 1, I have Extreme with 6. This was an album I thought it was. But really, a great album from the first time I listened to it. So a lot of people like complain about it because they say, oh, only the first 3 songs are hard rock songs. Then they go into a different direction. But I think this is a band that has always done that. Like they've always like played hard rock and then done different styles. I think the only like 2 albums that like were hard rock albums were maybe like the first 2, and then after that they've always experimented. So my favorite songs are Small Town Beautiful. That's a great ballad. The Mask. It's kind of weird with the weird vocals, but I like that one a lot. I think the 2 weaker ones, maybe Beautiful Girls and Here's to the Losers, but I like them, but they're not as good as the other songs in the album. I think this album is like almost perfect. I just did an extreme ranking, and I'll link that right after this, so if you want to check it out. I rated this a 9 out of 10 when I first reviewed it, and I still believe it holds that rating. And if you want to see my ranking, I'm going to stick that right there. So that's all. Let me know what you thought in the comment section. Give me your top 10 or 20, whatever you prefer. Thanks for watching. Please like this, help me with the algorithm, and comment and everything else. So I will see you in the next one.